Today we're going behind the curtain of the Oceania Championship. Organising an event of this scale isn't just about putting barbells on the floor. It's about a vision for the sport in our corner of the world. It's about testing the fittest athletes in our region and building a community that can rival the atmosphere on the global stage. But what does it actually take to build a legacy? To answer that, I'm joined by the three minds steering the ship: Bronson, Nicole, and Dean. I'm excited to get insight into what they have planned for this season and the years ahead. Enjoy the interview. Today, we've got a personal bias guest of mine. It's the brains and hearts behind the Oceania Fitness Championships. I've reached out to them to get some insight into what the upcoming season's going to look like for the championship series, and also get some insight into last year's events and the success of those. So, welcome to the show, guys. So,
Cheers.
to start us off, I would love to get some insight into, I guess, the why behind the championship series began. As I mentioned sort of before the show, myself and my partner, we run Grid Stampede, which is just a local comp at our gym, and I have, full insight into how stressful event management can be, and that's just on a small scale. So you guys have to be some crazy people to want to start a business such as Championship Series. But it makes me feel like there would definitely be a strong ethos behind why you started. So give us some insight into, I guess, the origin story.
Then you can start us off.
Hey, you want me to go? Yeah, sweet as. Well, that's really interesting what you're saying, Tyson. Just in regards to obviously the different levels of like first running an in-house comp, doing your first and second comp at a venue, and then going bigger and bigger again. Just for an example, I was at a fitness event last weekend in the US, that had 20,000 people over 4 days. So it's interesting again to just see that scale up again. And we might have five to 800 athletes over 3 days, but then to see like 20 and 30,000 athletes over 4 days again is just wild. So I mean, I guess all these levels of comps come with different years of experience and obviously different goals. But yeah, it is awesome to see the difference there. And then I guess just referring back to the whole why of the Series. Obviously, most people know it started with the NZ Champs a few years ago. And the idea there is, I got quite heavy into CrossFit 6, 7 years back, and started to notice that a lot of our younger athletes weren't getting too much exposure. So we have some pretty weapon athletes in New Zealand, and we're finding a lot of them were having to travel, over to Australia or even further to get any sort of like sponsorship or any sort of proper backing to really help them. And I guess the original idea of the Champ Series was to try and highlight some more, like some more talent in New Zealand, and then obviously like giving away prize money and getting sponsorship and helping them, and that transition was one thing. But then adding in the Oceania champs obviously gave people that opportunity to go over the ditch and compete there as well. And they weren't at a level like Torian, like so many people train year in and year out to either just miss out or are out by quite a bit. And I feel like the Oceania Championships kind of gives that next level down, that opportunity to jump on that bigger stage. And what we've done for 2026 is basically moved that comp to line up more with the CrossFit season. So it almost feels like these athletes that do miss out on Torian are still going to their version of a Torian, and following the CrossFit season. So I'm super stoked that like there's been a few of those changes in CrossFit this year, and I think it's heading in a good direction again. And yeah, obviously Nicole and Bronson jumped on board for the last couple of years and just made such a big impact. Both with their skill set, kind of a lot different to my skill set, and we've just worked so well together, and it's kind of all come together. And now, yeah, I think looking forward into 2026, one thing that really stood out for us, and this was all Bronson and Nicole's work, was that live stream that we had last year at New Zealand Champs. I think will really start to get some good exposure and whatnot for that original goal of what we were going for.
Yeah, amazing. And well, I guess how did that relationship start then for you guys? Because I'm assuming like Bronson and Nicole more along the the back end and the media side of things. Like I've seen like in Bronson's like Instagram, there's a lot more of
Yeah,
the media
yeah.
orientated thing. So how did that, I guess, relationship
Well,
start for one?
it was actually me. So I originally started NZ Champs with
Mhm.
I was in Auckland. I had a, CrossFit gym in Auckland, and then Pete and Linda down in Christchurch, and then Luke Fiso and Emma in Wellington. So we kind of covered all regions of New Zealand. So we thought, man, this would be great team to like start the New Zealand CrossFit Champs, you know, obviously affiliates from all those different regions. And our first year went really, really well for New Zealand Champs. We got quite a few teams and individuals there. But what we found was all three of us were all very similar in the way that we like had ideas and worked and whatnot. And then I ended up moving over the ditch to Aussie as well, which made it tough for kind of like me to stay involved with them. And Luke and Emma had just had a baby, so like time was getting tough with them. So I actually reached out to Bronson, Nicole, and Adam at Mount CrossFit and seeing if they were interested in sort of jumping on board, just because I knew I could see what they did in the media, and I knew that they would be able to bring a whole nother level of that marketing side to it, which is exactly what did happen, and they were super keen to jump on board, and yeah, now it's just sort of, I mean, last year went really well, but we also faced a lot of challenges, eh, guys? But I think we've set ourselves up nicely for this year, and just every, you know, that like what us three bring to the team is what it was needed to get it to where it's going. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, I guess touching on that, right? Last year did go well. Like for those of you who don't know, like I was there competing, my partner competed. We had a few other people from Grit there competing. I think there was about 7 of us total. Um, and we had an amazing experience. And that was one of the reasons why we've encouraged so many people to go back. And also, as you mentioned, that it is very much filling the gap to provide a competitive competition that is run super professionally. Like it's run at the same level as these higher end comps, just with that sort of different demographic, right? And more variety for people to sign up as well.
Oh, that's great
So
to
we
hear because that
really,
was our
really
goal.
push. Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because it's like, I think initially looking at it, that was what I digested it as, but I wasn't sure whether it was like if that was the case, right? Whether it was like, "Oh, no, we're going to be like," you know, I guess the WFP to CrossFit type thing, or if it was like, "Oh, no, we see a gap, like, we see a community of people that we can service within the sport," and that's what we're heading down, and yeah, definitely that seems to be the case, but like you said, last year was super successful. What were your biggest takeaways from those events that you were like, this was amazing. This is something that we want to make sure that we replicate again in the next year. And guess what were some of the challenges and adversities? Like I've seen the YouTube channels, and like obviously I was there, so I was aware with some of. I had some insight into, I guess, the shipping container debacle, and I was watching everyone sprint around in the morning of, and I was like, yeah, I was once again, I was like, man, I know what you guys are going through. So yeah, give me some insight into, I guess, the best outcomes and the things that you sort of looked around and were like, this is amazing. And then maybe some of the most stressful moments.
Do you guys want to go? Or you want me to go? Okay. Okay, let's start with like the good stuff. Especially NZ champs, obviously been having multiple years done of that. Obviously, we had a bit of a backing there, but as I mentioned before, it was the first year of the live stream, which made me very nervous because I've seen a lot of very average live streams, especially across CrossFit comps. But one thing that kind of kept me positive was how positive Bronson especially was about it. And I knew that if he was positive about it, then it's probably going to be pretty good. And he was bang on the money. It was one of the best live streams I've actually seen. And I'm not just being biased. I think it was probably up there with Torian, and that maybe even better. So that was one huge thing that we were like, we need to have this in both comps next year. Um, and then what else? I think all of our like the I mean, obviously we were in a lot of comps in New Zealand, especially struggle for this, but the judges that we did get were very, very good, and everyone was on, but we always struggle to get numbers. So the positive there is obviously the team of judges we did have were amazing. I mean, they always are. Anyone sort of giving up their timers, but I feel like this year was just especially like good because it was like some hard yards that they had to do. It was some long days, and we did have very limited numbers. You might one week out go, okay, sweet, we've got 50 volunteers signed up, we're sweet, and then on the first morning, like 15 of them turn up, and that's
Fair
I
enough.
guess
Yeah.
just that's what happens with volunteers. So I mean, we're looking at things there to fix that in terms of like some more sponsorship stuff and potentially like paying them.
Mhm.
Obviously, as we get bigger and we can get more money in and more sponsorship as well, that will obviously transfer to our volunteers and to more prize money too. And then I guess some of the things that we looked at that will probably change, we will potentially change like run it how we ran the comps, starting Friday morning. We did find at that level in that market that we're hitting again, not all of these guys are like elite athletes and full-time athletes. So most of them work on a Friday. So we think kicking the weekend off with Friday night will be better. So like a Friday night's lift or something like that, so that
Yeah.
people still can work on the Friday, and then just doing a big Saturday and a big Sunday, and not splitting it into 2 days of individuals first and then teams. Because I feel like teams feel like they kind of get shunted to the last day, and it's kind of rushed through when everyone's tired. So just like
Mhm.
Torian again, we'll look to like replicate similar stuff there in terms of running the teams across the 2.5 days as well.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
phenomenal idea because I definitely think that, like, a lot of the energy remains when all the indies are there, and that's, the judges and stuff like that as well. The energy would remain if the competition is sort of, yeah, segmented as such over the course of the 3 days. Because that was definitely, I guess, sort of the vibe that I sort of got as well. Come that last
yeah,
day, it was just like
and
everyone's
I think it was
cooking.
worse in Oceania as well than
Yeah, just
indoors. Like, we had less teams, and the
yeah.
vibe definitely dropped. So yeah, that's
Mhm,
that's one thing we're definitely gonna rectify as well.
mhm.
And then probably the biggest one, which you mentioned, the biggest headache, was, yeah, which is something we'll never do again, is, send two 20-foot containers across the ditch, in that shorter space of time. I mean, we're not silly. We got quotes, we got guarantees that containers were going to get there on these dates and this and all of this, and we had backup plans and stuff like that. But when it's too late to go to the backup plan, and things change last minute and it's out of your control, it made it very, very stressful. But again, the positive out of that was just to see, like, and that's what I was referring to before about all the volunteers that came together and just absolutely like went above and beyond to help us
Mm.
make it happen was just amazing, man. And I guess that's what like the CrossFit community is about, like making that stuff happen. And a lot of the athletes, they could see us still finishing off setting up, like as they were checking in and like for half an hour before they went on the comp floor. But people weren't bothered. They were like more impressed, I think, that we actually got it together. So that was cool.
Yeah, and I guess to speak on the half of, like, Oceania, right, was you guys did a phenomenal job at communicating with what was happening, and, like, the analogy I sort of used when I was, like, talking to some of the crew there was the whole, like, when you wait in an airport and there's you're here for 15, 20-minute sign, and if there was no sign, you'd feel like you were there for an eternity, but if there's the signs where you're like, "Oh, it'll only be 20 minutes, that's fine," and for you guys to be like, "Oh, this is what is happening, it's probably gonna be something like this," like, everyone sort of knew what was happening, whereas, like, if no one knew, everyone would be like, "What's going on?" So, I think even amongst the chaos, the, like, level of, I guess, transparency sort of put everyone at ease to be like, "Oh, yeah, sweet, cool, we're ticking along." It's just, it's, standard stuff, and, like, I think most people can sort of empathize as well. Being the first time it was there, I think, like, the expectations were sort of just like everyone was just stoked to have, like, an event like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was sort of, I guess, the takeaway of, like, I was just stoked with the communication. Even just, like, Dean was obviously there sort of before a lot of the heats, talking to the crew and updating them sort of throughout the entirety of the whole weekend. So that changes
yeah,
everything to sort of see, you know, you guys with on the ground, making sure that or the athlete experience is still really high. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's a good. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's amazing, man. Is around there like the F1 drivers with the drills and set that up. No, that's so good. Well, When you like talking about athlete experience as well, I guess to touch on the combination of the three things when I think of like a competition, which is balancing what, and like, obviously mentioning the live stream too. Like, what is your guys' thought process when you think about balancing I guess, the viewership, like the spectacle of like the event, right? The programming to have like a well rounded test of fitness, because that's obviously the sport as well. But then at the same time, ensuring that it is like an enjoyable experience for the athletes, right? Because you have those things where it's like you want it to be some sort of spectacle without it just being a circus. You want it to have like a good test of fitness without it being like 10K row, one iron back squat. And then at the same, like to make sure that the athlete experience is still enjoyable. What is your guys' thought process as you have been, I guess, piecing together the events to sort of balance those things?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, well, I've sort of jumped on board with the Proven team, in
Yep.
as one of the High Rocks coaches there. But
Mhm.
I've worked closely with obviously Shane and, Kiefer and a lot of those, high level coaches there. And I spoke to them before this, and that's exactly what we spoke about, is giving a well-rounded test, for obviously the athlete. The workouts need to be enjoyable, and I think what we ended up doing is obviously giving one of the proven CrossFit coaches each, a workout each. And I was
Mhm.
quite impressed, like normally when you go to a group of people and say this, a coach will just look at it, oh, what equipment have you got? And kind of, spend maybe up to half an hour just coming up with a workout, send it back, here you go. But like Kiefer mainly was the one that managed this and took this on board and went away and put spreadsheets together and got all the coaches over the course of like a week to submit their workout, and then just went above and beyond to go through all the workouts. Like they tested them with a lot of the elite athletes, and knowing that there was a couple of workouts in there that we knew were going to be way too hard
Oh,
for
for
that
sure.
level of teams to finish,
Yeah.
and we spoke about that as well. And we wanted to keep it at that. I think,
Mhm.
yeah, on one of the team workouts that a couple of the games athletes tested, they only just finished it with seconds to go, so it was definitely going to be out of reach. But I guess that's where, if you have an event and you put every single workout in there where people can finish, you I feel at the end of the day, this is still like the Oceania Championship Series, the New Zealand champ. We want some of those workouts in there to be almost too hard to finish, or man, like
Mhm.
we got them to go away and go, we actually got so close to finishing that, and that's like a games level finisher workout. So I think I think overall they did a really good job of all the workouts, and the feedback, hey guys, from everyone was was pretty awesome.
Yeah, the workouts would definitely be enjoyable, and I guess, like, it's even in Oceania, like, as it grows, man, like, the baseline level of fitness now is so high that, like, even those
Yes.
people who are just missing out on Torian, they're still so fit because of how fit those semifinals athletes are. So it's like maybe the
Oh,
first year in
100%.
Oceania, the pool maybe wasn't, like, super deep, but then as it goes on, it's like even the people that are just missing out on semifinals, like, those sort of workouts are still gonna be like very applicable workouts for those individuals. Like
Oh,
I said, maybe
massively,
the
yeah.
first year it might be the case where you're like, oh, it was pretty tough for the field. Maybe like the bottom 50% of the field was like, really struggled with it. But over time, it's going to be like, oh, maybe only the bottom 20%, the bottom 10%, because just the people that are aware of the competition and, want to be a part of it and can be a part of it are going to just be, once again, super competitive because the baseline level of fitness is just so dramatically high now.
Yeah, even every like even refreshing those movement standards for this year, looking at it back, going, okay, well, 3 years ago when we started, this level of guys and girls were doing this, and it's just like now everyone's able to do handstand pirouettes, do the handstand rack. You know what I mean? It's just the level is just going up and up and up, and
Up
that's
and
where obviously like we'll gauge that each year and make it challenging enough for everyone at this level, but also not too challenging that like they're in that division and absolutely can't do any of the movements. So yeah, but
yeah,
you're
because at
right.
the
I
same
mean,
time, you don't want people out on the floor with their family in the crowd just, like, watching them stand there do nothing.
exactly. Yeah. But I think this level today, even the level we're hitting at today, is like when you look at the games like 10 years ago, like what they were doing
Mhm.
there, that's almost the level that we're at now, like pre semi-final level. It's just
Uh-huh.
crazy. Like if
Insane,
you're if
man.
you're a games athlete or a semi-final athlete and you're not and you're a male and you're not snatching like 130 and clean and jerking like 160, you're just going to be left behind. And those are just wild numbers. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the baseline energy system tests for like games level athletes now, it's like when you're sort of using these as like benchmarks for athletes to be like, oh, I want to make semifinals. It's like, you know, I always use the analogy of like when you want to be a doctor, you know, the series of tests that you've got to pass and marks you've got to get to, get said, diploma. Whereas like back in the day, it was like, oh, if you wanted to go to regionals, it was like you were just probably someone who trained like every day, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like the benchmarks, those tests that are required of you are like so high. Like I have so much respect for some of those people that really go all in to sort of try and push it because it's getting to that point now where to be super competitive in the sport. So yeah, having like an opportunity for competitions like this to exist to sort of fill that gap is for those once again those competitors that are still insanely fit, insanely skillful, but maybe work a full time job still. And like that's the reason that they're just on the cusp because it's like they're managing family business, whatever it is, and it's like those that allostatic load of life just allows them to maybe not push to that upper echelon just because the sport has grown so much and has become so competitive, which is a great thing, right? Like it's amazing to see what like some of these high level athletes can do. And in saying that, when you reviewed the movement standards for this upcoming year, like I did see there was swim and there was handstand ramp and stuff like that. So are these all things that use I was like, are they just throwing it out there or is in case because of possibility? Or is that something that you guys are thinking of utilizing in the future? Or you covering your bases to just keep people guessing?
Yeah, we're definitely covering our bases there. There was a couple of things last year that we that weren't in there that some of the proven coaches added in or wanted to add in, and we just wanted to make sure that obviously this year if we are going to be doing swimming and all that sort of stuff, not saying that we 100% are,
Mm,
that we do have it covered, you know. And again, at the
yeah.
end of the day, CrossFit athletes they train for anything, so. There's a swim, there's a swim. If there's not, there's
Right,
not.
that's it. Still that component of the the unknown and knowable type thing, but yeah, amazing. I guess when it comes to the 2026 season, so I know for those people who are listening, the qualifiers are live, right? Everyone can sign up. They kickstart on the 6th of April. Is that right? Yeah, cool. And is it similar format to last year where you guys are looking at releasing all the workouts at once in that week? That's sort of the same sort of gist.
Yeah, it'll be similar, I guess. The only difference
Yeah,
is obviously now we're adding the with the teams being over the entire weekend, we're adding the team qualifier workouts. And
qualify.
was it 1 or 2 week later, guys? 2 weeks later?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, amazing. That was gonna be my next question, whether it was yeah, because obviously there's people who will do like, in the past, there's people who've done the individual and then they've done the teams, whereas now it's going to, well, like, segment a little bit, right? Because 'Cause they'll be running alongside of each other. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. People can still do both qualifiers, obviously, and then
mhm,
they'll just have to decide if they're going to do individuals or teams for the
or team.
finals.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And how do you guys look with the qualifiers? Is that something that you guys put together last time? You guys had the proven team alongside you as well, helping, like, piece that together?
Uh, yeah.
For the tr Yeah, solid. And as the year sort of goes on, right, so we've got the qualifiers and then the event itself, is in August? Is that right? Or was it earlier? Sorry, earlier? No, yeah, 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 that's right. Sorry, I literally said that at the start. Okay, that's right. Half there. So when you guys think of the events for this upcoming year, right? What are the main goals that you guys have, well, that would deem a successful event? So when you guys, are there looking around and you're like, this was something that, we wanted to make sure that we nailed this year. And like, what are your sort of, I guess, KPIs for determining the success of the event?
I guess looking at, I mean, as Nicole mentioned before, the number one thing for us is that athlete experience and just keep
Mhm.
making sure that we keep that standard. Um, and obviously all the little niggles and issues we had last year, just ironing those out. In terms of kind of just not obviously this year we won't leave it just until like all the volunteers that have registered. Like we'll make sure that those guys are there on the floor, like in the numbers that we actually have, and then I guess when we look at KPIs and stuff and numbers, yeah, obviously an increase and team numbers would be really nice. I think with the individual comp, we're always going to get some pretty good numbers on both sides. Oceania being the first year, obviously, the individuals on that wasn't full. So if we can fill that up on the Oceania side and then get both teams for more, whether that's another 10 teams or another 40 teams, if we can get close to capping those teams, then that'll be a huge win for us.
Yeah, amazing. Look, I could definitely see that, being a possibility. Like I said, talking
I
on it,
think so,
it
yeah,
was
from
amazing
last year.
what you guys did. Yeah, for sure. And it's just that first year, obviously, like, maybe not as did you notice much growth in your, like, social media after the event? So just from people sharing their experiences from the media that you guys had, did you notice that, like, there was a pretty big influx of eyeballs? Yeah. I definitely thought that would be the case. Getting one out of the way, getting all the media, having everyone's sort of experiences, and then people being like, "All right, cool, I'll add that to my calendar next year," right? Whereas the first one, people are sort of like, "Well, do I risk it?" Because I know the logistics of the qualifiers sort of fell close to another competition, which I know just speaking from my client base, there was uh, people had done this previous competition, many a time before, so they knew what to expect, and they knew, I guess, the sort of weight that it holds for the people who were able to qualify for it. So a lot of them were like, "Oh, look, I just want to do this because I really want to make that," and I was like, "Sweet." Right. Whereas now I think people saw how cool of an experience it was. The logistics of the qualifiers are obviously in a much better space, so I can see it being, you know, a solid year. So, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's like I said, it's like it's as the eyeballs get there, it's going to get more competitive, and the baseline of fitness is obviously just ever increasing. So like, yeah, I can see that being the case, and even just the level of the intermediates and stuff like that as well, right? Like all of those sort of levels will just take that little bit of a step up. And I've given people sort of insight into that. I've got a similar thing. Like one of the boys from our gym, he won the intermediate last year. So he's like going up to I was like, "You going up to the elite? Like you have to go up." And so he's like, "All right, I'm gonna," he's going all into the same thing because he knows the jumps between them. But yeah, I love having these competitions because it gives people these external drivers for their season, right? Like we sort of touched on before, it's like the gap between some of these high level competitions. It's hard to really get buy-in when you know how far that gap is, and it really gives people things to work towards. And like I've noticed, even just in our affiliate, people that they see what you guys have posted and they're like, "All right, like this is achievable, like this is something doable that they can push towards," right? And even if the teams sort of becomes that, maybe it's like a gap even before the indie. So it's like I get to be on the same stage, I get to experience the same workouts and be in the warm up area with like some of these crew, but it's like the team might be that first sort of spot before the indie. And there is other comps that are a similar thing where they do the threes and the twos, and they're almost like a little bit more accessible than the individual. And then that way they're able to sort of work their way along. And I guess as far as like, you guys see the next couple of years go, right? Like you've spoken about the live stream being like a huge goal, right? So all the pressure on Bronson for
Yeah.
that to make sure it's still a banger over the future years. But I guess, alongside that, where do you guys see, potentially this year, next year, 5 years from now? Like, what is the direction that you want to go in? Is it something where you want to really hold true to what you guys have at the moment in terms of the avatar that you have for this competition? Or are you guys looking to be like, look, I guess the types of people that sign up to the competition then control the trajectory of it? Or do you guys have like a set ethos of, this is who we are, this is championship series?
Yeah. You guys all good? Yeah, I think, when we look at that, Tyson, when we look at, like, the whole season now and, like, how we've shuffled things over the last few years, like, when you look at it now, it's like, okay, the CrossFit season, obviously, the Open's coming up soon, then, obviously, there's Torian, the games, and and I guess like we've shuffled things to really stay in line with that. So it's like our online qualifier teams and individuals are very similar. Oceania is going to be very similar to Torian, obviously just hitting that slightly different market below. And then we look at like the NZ champs, obviously as like almost like the CrossFit Games, you know what I mean? And reverting back to our original goal of giving New Zealand athletes more exposure. So hopefully, like that means that these guys that may have done Torian or whatever, or the Aussie athletes, then do go, okay, right, well, we might make a trip over to New Zealand and go do the New Zealand champs, and just bring more of that exposure to New Zealand from the CrossFit scene, because obviously the Torian's over. Like, what, only two, Jay, Ricky, and maybe Bailey or whoever goes to the games every, so it's like it just opens it up there. And I think us staying true to that, and just like following that CrossFit season, staying in line with CrossFit, and just supporting the CrossFit communities in Australia and New Zealand is the number one goal there. Yes, we do have plans, and we've had talk about other competitions overseas that may enter in part of the championship series, but yeah, our main focus, obviously, for the next like 5 years, I'd say, is just to keep building both NZ and giving those New Zealand athletes exposure, and building Oceania up as well to a level even close to Torian would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can give an actual
Yeah.
real yeah, yeah, I know what you mean, that, and I can what Bryce Bronson's trying to say, and I can actually give an actual real life scenario here. I started CrossFit in 2017 or sorry, 2018. I can't remember, 2017 or 2018, and it was the same year that I watched and I tell the story. I've told the story so many times, but it's so good. I watched James Newbury on the CrossFit Games, and I think 2018, 29 come fifth in the world. Hadn't really started CrossFit, and I was like, man, it was that CrossFit Games that I watched, and I was like, I want to get really good at this. So I spent the next 2 years knuckled down, even through COVID in 2020. Took my rig from my gym up to the beach, and was like
Mm.
doing CrossFit workouts on the beach, and training with my partner at the time, and we're getting really, 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 really fit. And then within, I think it was 21, qualified for Torian, and little do I know, I hadn't even really learned to do a ring muscle up properly, and I walk out onto the comp floor at Torian, and who's in the lane next to me is James Newbury, who I just watched on TV like 2 years before come fifth in the world. And just standing there going, damn, I've got to do like 30 ring muscle ups, and I don't even know if I can do five. And man, it just be the pure determination. I managed to get through all of them and finish all the snatches. I still came last, of course, but just that sort of experience, like
Mm.
being able to do that for like some of our, yeah, no, it might not even be our Kiwi athletes, some Aussie athletes too, but standing in that lane next to Royce Dunn or Bailey Martin or some of these guys that people watch on TV is just is a phenomenal feeling. So like if we can achieve that too, that's a huge one.
Yeah, amazing guys. Well, I guess on behalf of an affiliate owner, athlete, and coach, I appreciate what you guys are putting yourselves through to continue to offer more to the athletes in the sport, right? Like it's still a growing sport, like as we said, but I know the stress that you guys put yourselves through to run this event. We appreciate it as a coach, and giving people the opportunity to compete, right? Like you said, the New Zealand athletes that are out there, the adaptive athletes that are out there, and just all of the individual athletes that are looking for more opportunities to compete. I know, I guess on behalf of all of them, definitely appreciate it, and hopefully you guys can keep as much hair in your head as possible for this coming year, and everything runs, you know,
Lucky I got no
everything.
here.
Yeah, true that. Keep everything running as smoothly as possible. But yeah.
Yeah.
Classic guys. No, very much appreciate it. I hope all the success, and hopefully, the Greek community can come up there in droves for Oceania. And New Zealand is definitely, I know everyone doing the same sort of qualifiers. That's somewhat of a conversation as well. So we'll see how it all pans out for the year ahead. But wish you guys the most success, and we'll definitely be following along.
Thanks, Tyson.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time, mate.
I appreciate your time too, guys.
Yeah.
I'll end it there. And like I said, if you guys when you guys like hang up or like you hit leave, it will just sort of like keep uploading.